can't believe I'm doing this, Melissa. This is crazy.
Hello!
Hello.
Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I am so pumped to have Father Tran with us today. I asked on Instagram if you guys would be interested in a Q&A with a priest, and there were so many of you that said yes that Father agreed to be in the video with me.
I am super excited to be here. Thank you for having me, Melissa. This is totally not my natural form of communication, so I am a little nervous and I don't know what's going to happen, so this is exciting.
It's going to be perfect. Thank you for being here. Father Tran helped con-celebrate our wedding mass, so
I
he
showed up and invited.
is very special to us, very invited, and we love him a lot. So we're grateful that he's doing this video with me today. Okay, let's start with this. What made you want to become a priest?
I can boil it down to my parents. I always say it's my parents' story, and the both of them lived very difficult lives. They were both refugees from the war. My dad almost became a priest himself and suffered so much adversity, but my parents always had joy in their suffering in the midst of it. And when they were really poor, and then they always would connect that to God, like God is joy in our suffering. And that was a seed that was planted that even when I was here at University of Miami studying for pre-med, I was a neuroscience major, that it never left me and I had to explore it more. And that journey through the seminary was an incredible, amazing journey. And it was an affirmation, a super yes from the Lord. And these past few years as a priest have been a giant yes as well.
Did you ever discern marriage or becoming a friar or anything like that?
Yeah, I definitely thought about marriage. That was totally the plan when I was here at the University of Miami. And, you know, that saying that if you want to make God laugh, you tell him your plans. Right? Regarding the religious brothers and being a friar and all that, I'm not going to lie, I kind of was like, I don't know what all this stuff is. There's a whole lot of orders. I'll just figure it out once I get to seminary. But when I got there, it just fit so much like a hand in the glove. I was like, no, this is where I'm called to be. Like the kind of what they call a secular priest, a diocesan priest. That's what I am.
So what was the most surprising or unexpected thing about becoming or being a priest?
I think like the constant joy, even as exhausted as I am sometimes, getting crazy tired, it's just so amazing, the experiences that we have, and every day is like an adventure. I just didn't realize it was going to be like that. You kind of aren't sure what to expect, but once you're in the midst of it, it's crazy, it's busy, but I really do enjoy every second of it. I mean, the highs, the lows, walking with people, it's just an incredible experience. I'm really surprised at how much I do love being a priest. I'm the chaplain for the University of Miami, and I work under our good pastor, Father Richard Vigoa here at St. Augustine, so I'm a priest here as well.
So he's involved with the college students, which is right across the street from the church, and then all the young adults, and then all the married couples, and all the babies, and you basically minister and help with everybody. So he is great. I was recently told that missing Holy Day of Obligation is a mortal sin. Is this accurate?
Yes, but you do have to remember, so it's called invincible ignorance, is when you like do something bad but you didn't really know it was bad, but then later on you're like, oh wait, I wasn't supposed to do that. Like that also, it takes away from what they call the culpability of your sin, which means that you're not really at fault for it. But now that you know, you can make sure that you put in your calendar every year, annually, that this day I have to go to church. It's a day of obligation, like Sundays are a day of obligation. So yeah, if you miss it, it's mortal sin.
That's one of my favorite things about the Blessed is She liturgical planner, because on the calendar for the month, it tells you all the holy days of obligation. So it's already in your planner for you. How would you recommend somebody to get closer to God during spiritual dryness?
There's some amazing spirituality things that you can read. St. Teresa of Avila, St. John of the Cross. It's pretty intense. St. Ignatius of Loyola, they all of our like spiritual masters. Spiritual dryness, they say, is a part of the game. It's a natural part, and it's something that I think is really important. They all say how important this time period is. Just like a marriage is not the honeymoon the entire time, rather, like when things are feeling like a little like the same day over and over again or something like that, that's where like the deepest love starts taking root and growing. And so now that you're not experiencing the giant spiritual fruits that you were experiencing at the beginning of the journey, actually this is the Lord's call of like how you can get deeper and fall deeper in love with him. It's a lot about being faithful, about staying on track, and about finding the Lord in the dryness that I would recommend.
I feel like that's so important for people to hear, that it's normal and important and can be really helpful. Because I think a lot of times when people feel that spiritual dryness, they feel like something's wrong with me, or like I'm not doing enough, or I'm not good enough, and things like that.
It kind of seeps into our mentality of the world too, that like people think that marriage is all sparks and honeymoon like and everything. And I think that if you get out of it, I mean, you always will get out of it after a year or two. Like they feel like, oh my gosh, my marriage is falling apart and we're not supposed to be together and these things. And that's why like it's really important to like know each other, especially in the parts where it feels a little drier.
What do you think is the most common misconception about priests?
I think a lot of people think that we're super lonely a lot. And okay, so answering, the thing is that priests, we're all different people as well. I think people don't realize that we are people, so we all have different personalities. So a lot of these answers about what are priests like, this, and this, I'll tell you what I'm like. And I think from my observations with all of my brothers, but then of course you'll have priests that are like super grumpy, or priests that are super this way or that way. You'll have like, so we span the gamut. Loneliness is something that it can be a part of a priest's life if the priest lets it, but it depends on like how your personality is and how you work. For example, for me, I am never lonely. I'm actually I'm like inundated with people all of the time, but that's the kind of way that I work. It's a ministry of presence, of being like there with the students all the time, always here in the parish. My calendar is like insanely full all the time, always dinners, always breakfasts with people. I don't identify with the loneliness thing. I mean, I could see why some guys, if they were like, I don't know, in a town with maybe 20 people running a church, maybe that would be harder for them. But
so like some people experience loneliness, but people have assumed that about you maybe, and you don't identify with that at all.
Yeah, no, I need me time. Sometimes I'm like, okay, I gotta go sit in a chair in a dark room by myself. And
there's so many people that love Father Tran and want to spend time with you all the time, so you probably have to say.
They just don't know any better, but it's a good time.
Holding hands during the Our Father at Mass.
The church hasn't said you can or you can't do this explicitly, which I think is actually pretty wise. They kind of like leave it to parishes because, some of them are organic. I think generally it's more discouraged, but it's okay if your parish is already doing it. Whenever it comes to the liturgy, I think people have a mentality that is much more, this is what I grew up with and this is how I know it. But remember, like for probably most of us who are listening to this or talking, most of us have experienced what Catholicism is like in the United States. But I say go to a church in Nigeria, go to a church how they worship in Vietnam, and you'll see that there's such differences in the liturgy that like the hand-holding thing is not like a huge deal.
There's cultural differences.
It's huge. I mean, in Nigeria, some of their masses go 3 hours, but they're jumping up and down. They're super excited the whole time. There's percussion instruments. And then in Vietnam, it's super like quiet and solemn, and they don't even shake hands at the sign of peace. They do a solemn bow to each other. When it comes to how should we do the Catholic thing, just remember that our church is really big and really wide, and to be okay that things are they can differ from country to country, but even like from parish to parish sometimes.
So how would one find a spiritual director if they wanted that? This is such a good question. I had no idea how to find a spiritual director. So how would somebody find a spiritual director / ask a priest to be your spiritual director?
To know if there's a good fit with you and the priest, you just listen to his homilies. You kind of have like this relationship. You maybe want to sit with him one-on-one. The thing is sometimes though is that some priests are just they can't take it, or they're not open to taking it. And there's different conversations. There's spiritual direction, and there's spiritual counseling, and just spiritual conversations. But I was getting inundated from so many different angles that I personally only do kind of like the spiritual conversations now. And then what I do is I take people, and when they ask me, I just point them to other people. But when it comes to finding a good spiritual director, I have a good network of people. You can email me. I'm sure Melissa will put it in. So usually the spiritual direction thing is like a very organic process of trying to figure out who, it's a relationship. So sometimes people don't fit each other well personality-wise. It's kind of a very organic from the ground up sort of thing. You can just approach people. Some priests will be very open to it, and some people are just unable to take on any more spiritual directors, but there's some really great ones around here, and I'd be happy to help you all find some.
Okay, so we'll put his email down in the description box, so if you're looking for a good spiritual director, then you can email him and find out. You might be getting a lot of emails. No,
I was just going to say, I don't know what's going to happen to my inbox soon. So.
Is blessed salt a thing? And what is it used for?
Yes, blessed salt is a thing. If any of you have ever seen me do a house blessing or an apartment blessing, I always use the blessed salt. In fact, it's even more than blessed salt. It's for us it's called exorcised salt. And I know that freaks people out. They're like, oh my God, what's going on? Am I possessed? Or is somebody in my house? No, don't worry. The word exorcism, and I'm going to explain it just really quickly, is not just the pulling out of ugly, demonic, spiritual things, but it also means to protect against those things too. It's like to seal you and to protect you from those things. So that's why we do a prayer of exorcism at baptisms too over the child. If you didn't know that. But then also, the exorcism is not just like the crazy things that you see in the movies, like demons and all that, but it's also to protect you from the common evils that we face: anxieties, depressions, anger, jealousy, envy, lust. That's why this salt is really special, and it's got an amazing tradition. It's one of the best kept secrets of the Catholic Church, to be honest.
Yeah.
And just from personal stories and what this salt has done for people, there's a reason why I use it at every single blessing, because it is really powerful and really special.
So it's something like holy water or holy oil.
It's a sacramental, yeah.
Right, something like that.
Yep, it has lots of graces, and I think I just love the salt too, because you can bless a home with holy water, but the water disappears in like 30 seconds, whereas the salt will be in your home today, tomorrow, a year from now, even 10 years from now, because you're not going to get all that salt out of your house. It will always be there with you, and it's a reminder of God's constant presence with you.
I got some exercised salt at this mass that I went to, and I wasn't prepared, and I didn't have anywhere to put it, and so I just put it into like a pocket of one of my purses, and it's still like I have a whole pile of salt in my purse.
Yep.
And then we've like sprinkled it around in our home and everything, but yeah, I just have it in my bag. Dating advice: is it okay for a girl to make the first move? What do you think?
It's hilarious that you're asking the priestess, but okay, I guess so.
They want holy guidance.
Yeah, I think that, especially in this culture and in this day and age, I don't think it's inappropriate to make it a thing. Sometimes it can be not the first move, but you can like really, really nudge him to the point where he's like, oh, I think she likes me. Because
like make it clear.
I'm not gonna lie, we are really thick-headed men in general, and even working with like the college guys and a lot of young adult guys, like they will not know that somebody likes them. It'll be like 3 or 4 months, and like the girl will be like, and all this emotional turmoil, and the guy will have no clue. So
if you're wanting to make the first move, you have Father Tran's approval.
Yeah.
All right, you heard it.
Yeah.
Go make the move. What is your favorite sacrament?
Oh my gosh, it's like, which one's your favorite child, Am I allowed to not say the Eucharist?
I feel like you have to say the Eucharist.
Okay, so because the Eucharist is
but
crazy.
Maybe not. Maybe you can say
besides the Eucharist.
Because, the Eucharist is the best part of life and the church and everything. So besides the Eucharist.
I also love matrimony. Matrimony is just such a beautiful thing to see people like embarking on a journey together. And I get emotional every time I do it. And then I'm gonna do my top 3. Maybe I'll do my top 5 of the 7 sacraments maybe. Okay, and then the next one I'll just stop here is confession. Priests aren't allowed to really talk about what happens in confession, but I've seen more miracles in the sacrament of confession than anywhere else, and it's an incredible, healing, amazing, beautiful sacrament. If any of you have any hang-ups about confession, you should really ask the Lord to show you that it is not a place that is scary or intimidating, but it is a place of healing, and it is a place of many miracles. And when you start seeing the sacrament of reconciliation as something that is really about you and God and your relationship and how good that is for it, it really opens like a floodgate of grace into the soul. So definitely...
so Eucharist, marriage, and confession.
Yeah.
And that is a perfect segue because we got quite a few questions about confession. So let's jump into that. Any tips to be less anxious about confession?
To be less anxious, I think we have to change our mindset of what confession is, because I think that Pope Francis described it as you can't approach it as a torture chamber. Church is more like a field hospital. That we are all sick and that we need the sacrament of confession to be better and to feel better. And it really is. For people who really have a good confession, I think a lot of us walk out of there and we're like, wow, I feel way, way better. And that idea that it is a good and beautiful and noble thing. To be less anxious, you may want to find a priest that is maybe more your age or more like culturally in line with you, because like that helps it a lot. Maybe to do an appointment rather than to like get crammed in with amongst like 40 people. And generally just to really, the important thing is to just see the positive rather than like the scary, intimidating parts, like, oh my gosh, I have to spill all of my grossest things to another person, or I need to like go to this thing that looks really intimidating. When we begin to see how the beauty of it and how like incredibly efficacious, or how like the grace flows into our soul after we do that, I think that's hopefully will help take the edge off the anxiety. And then hopefully if you go to a good priest that you really connect with, the anxiety lessens over and over, like over a period of time.
Especially if you haven't been to confession in a long time or like ever, making an appointment is really important, because you don't want to feel rushed. You want to feel like you're able to take your time and sit with the priest and have him guide you through it, especially if you're new. But I think that's true going, like the more often you go, the more comfortable you are, the more you like desire to go and want to go, and know that you feel so much better afterwards.
Yeah, and if you have had a bad experience in the confessional, one, I apologize for that experience or for the priest. Like I said, we are all our own people. And so confession is one of those really interesting sacraments, because it's just you and another person, but like it's really you and God, and that person's supposed to mediate for you. But you could catch a priest on a really bad day, you know, like insomnia, or you could have just had somebody who's just super old school and super like straight, kind of hit you in the face sort of thing, what his words are or something. But I really recommend, if it's something that's scary for you, is to like maybe talk to somebody who's closer to you, or build a relationship with somebody who you may not find as intimidating, and it might be helpful.
Yeah, and I think that's like maybe a misconception that I had, not even like intentionally or that I was aware of, but that priests are like not human, you know, like, and I think you do a really good job of showing your humanity and getting on our level and just being like, I'm normal, like I'm a person just like you. But I think sometimes we think priests are like not really human.
Yeah,
which interferes.
Yeah, and it's hard for us, because we're not allowed to have like bad days, you know, like we have to like make sure like we're on top. But it gets pretty tough. So yeah, please just have some charity. Sometimes the priesthood is kind of rough on us, so it's not you. A lot of the times it's just we're human.
What does a priest really think about during confession?
I'm going to change it to, what does Father Tran think about?
Okay.
What does Father Tran think about? My inner engine that drives me, and I think it does drive all priests, is how can I help this person to experience God in the way that God needs them to hear it or to experience it, and so that they can have the fullness of joy and peace and happiness. And it is really trying as hard as I can to be open to seeing like what are the right things, what does this person need? Because I mean the Lord desperately wants all of us. Like he desperately wants each and every one of us to be with him and to have everything that he's wanted for us from the beginning, like to be completely and fully happy in him. And I'm praying during the whole time, especially depending on the context. If you have somebody who hasn't gone in 40 years or has gone in a week and all these things, it's one of those things that you kind of have to think on your feet and allow the Lord to speak through you, because you know it's a big thing.
Doesn't that make you want to go to confession? Go to confession. It's very good. I shared on Instagram the other day, our parish has confession every single day of the week, multiple times a day, and there's always a line, and it's so beautiful. It's so good. Do priests secretly judge people in confession for how messed up they are or bad things that they've done?
So does Father Tran judge? I'm not gonna lie, it's really hard to judge, because I think the more in tune you are with how broken you are, you realize that everyone is broken in their own ways, you know? Some of us grew up in different circumstances in different ways. And regarding the judging thing, that's not really a thing so much. It's more like if I hear something that's really heavy or something that's really dark, I really feel more that this is a wound that I've just heard about, and I know that the Lord doesn't want this for them anymore, and he wants them to have, like, to be healed of this and to not carry this in their life. How can we heal this, or how can we begin that journey? God doesn't want us to carry these wounds. It was just like in the gospel last week. This is the Lamb of God. He came to take away the sins of the world. He came to take away our wounds, and he wants us to feel better. And so that's what I'm really thinking about. Like, so when you say a really heavy sin, or there's that one gross thing you do not want to say to another person, that's probably exactly where the Lord wants to go.
Yeah, don't hold back in confession, because everything that you're hearing is like what the priest is doing during confession, and all they want to do is be Christ to you and help you find healing. When getting ready for confession, I feel like I never do anything right. I'm not sure exactly what they mean, but maybe you could share like the best way to prepare for confession.
If you look online, there are things called examination of consciences.
I'll put a link in the description box for a good examination of conscience that he can tell me which one is the best.
You go down and you go through each question, and it's pretty good. It's really thorough, and it helps you to really prepare. If what you are talking about is that you have a feeling that you are a person that like never does anything right, and that like, why am I broken? It's okay to be broken. Like, we are broken. The important thing is that we're trying to put ourselves as much as together as possible, knowing that we are not perfect. When we need to go again, be okay to pick ourselves up and to continue on that journey. And the idea of committing a sin over and over again, I mean, what do we want? Like, to commit a new sin every week or something, you know? Like, we don't, that's like something that really holds people back, the idea that like, I'm just confessing the same thing over and over. But like, it's okay to have a sin that you're stuck on, as long as you're working on it and trying to do it like maybe less frequently or less in intensity or whatever it is. Like, that's where the Lord, if that's where the Lord is calling you to grow and heal.
I think that's really helpful and like important perspective, because I feel like so many people struggle with that. Like, oh my gosh, but I have to go back to confession for the same thing again and again. What you said is really helpful. Like, do you want to be committing new sins every week? No. At least you're not adding to the list, and it's something that you're struggling with, but it's good not to be adding. Right? What do I do when I can't get over or heal from a past sin and you constantly are thinking about it? And then another question that's along those lines is, what are your thoughts on insecurity and like how to see yourself as God does?
Oh, these are good. Melissa, are you familiar with Healing the Whole Person by
Yes.
Dr. Schutz?
So good.
Oh yeah, that's really good.
Again, I'll put the link in the description below because it's really, really, really good.
That book is super amazing,
and the retreats.
Yeah, and I'm sure
so
Melissa,
good.
I think Melissa's been trained in this. She knows a lot about this, so
yeah.
she can talk more about that, but that's a really great place to start. But I mean, it's talking about like a lot of the things we deal with. It's more like the fruits of it, like, you know, why am I sad? Why am I anxious? And like, we think that like we need to just get rid of the fruit, and that's okay. But if there's a tree that goes all the way down to our past and history sometimes, and to get rid of the fruit, you have to get rid of the entire thing. You got to pull it out by the roots. Confession is not meant to just like get rid of our memories or the things that we've done. You know, that could be an amazing grace, and sometimes it works like that. But oftentimes it takes a lot more, like counseling, like therapy, like constant discussions regarding this one issue that I've done and that I can't get over. Going on a retreat, you know, for those who have gone through the horrors of abortion, there's, you know, Rachel's Vineyard. That's usually the one that like really helps to get over something like that. When it comes to not just our sins, but family relationships or traumatic events that have happened in our lives that like a lot of us can identify, like that was the moment where something really strong happened so much that it kind of like changed me or gave me something that those are the moments where the Lord wants to go back and heal. Like, those are the roots of this wound that has sometimes spawned other wounds down the line. Sometimes it's a deeper thing that requires more than just the sacrament of confession.
Okay, so Healing the Whole Person book, the retreats, counseling, therapy, continual conversation.
This area, if you've been able to identify it, is definitely where the Lord wants to go. And just like to invite the Lord into that wound, because a lot of times what we do is, instead of allowing the Lord to heal us, we like kind of like a wounded animal. We don't want him to come near that wound or come near us in our pain. But that's exactly where he wants to go.
Advice for dating someone who is a non-practicing Catholic and not being pushy about my faith. And then another one was thoughts on marrying a godly non-Catholic Christian.
We live in a day and age, too, where it's really rough. Like, I think that the ratio of good Catholic strong men to good Catholic strong women is like probably 1 to 10. And I think that that's really difficult, because I've seen it that there's so many amazing Catholic young women out there that like, they're like, where are the guys? And it, like, there's a whole lot of reasons. I mean, you know, culture, masculinity, the loss of like, you know, we can talk, that's a whole nother discussion. But the second thing is like, sometimes people, the Lord is asking us to be creative and to be open. So sometimes his will may be like, it's not some sort of saintly Catholic man, but like somebody who has the potential to become the man that like that you deserve and that's meant for you. So if he's a faithful Christian, he's got the basics. He's got like, he knows that Christ is his Lord and Savior, and if he is open to you practicing your faith and open to you eventually, like if it gets to the point of marriage, that the children are raised Catholic, I think that that's an open door that the Lord may have put in your life that you may want to look into. I think that the Lord works unconventionally sometimes. I think more problematic than like a Christian who's not Catholic, a Catholic who's not practicing at all. That's a little bit more worrisome because that shows he's not as spurred on by the conviction of Christ. If you can, in your discernment, think that he is like clay, you know, that he's moldable, that he's open to it, that he's willing to grow and become and to fight for you the way he should, that he like will fight for you and for your children in the future, and that he'll like get to that point, or at least is open to not working against you, then I also think that that's okay too. And hopefully he'll like reactivate his Catholicism just by being around a really good holy woman, and I've seen it happen a lot. And then, you know, if you can like convince him to go on a retreat, to find like good Catholic guys that are his age that he can spend time with and realize like, oh my gosh, there's more to this. That might be where the Lord's calling you to. And just going on a date or two with somebody also doesn't mean you're married to them. So like it may be that the Lord's calling you to just a little bit of a relationship.
So it's okay to go on dates with people who aren't like the best Catholic in the world.
Yeah, and sometimes it's evangelical. Yeah, sometimes it's evangelical too.
Can girls be altar servers at church to begin with, period? Or can they be altar servers at church if there aren't enough boys to do it?
The short answer is yes. Here in the United States, it's like it goes by diocese, like the rules of what they want to do. So yeah.
Because I've heard, because here, yes, but right? Like here there are girls.
So St. Augustine, we don't have girl altar servers, but there are some surrounding churches around here that definitely do have it.
Yeah, but I've heard of like other dioceses in the country that don't allow it at all.
Yeah, and I think it's more about the idea of for the boys to be around the altar and to see what it's like, as they could be offering the Mass one day, you know, and allows them to see like how close it is. So as they get older, they can continue in that ministry. And for the girls, as they get older, it's more appropriate for them to be something like a lector or something where they can continue to be serving in a ministerial function of the church.
Do you think that priests should be able to marry? And do you think that that would be an outlet that prevents deviancy? So this is like a more heavy, intense question.
So I am a faithful son of the church. If for some reason that there is like a ruling or something that priests are allowed to get married, then that's fine. It's not crazy because we were doing for like the first like 10 centuries of the church that were married priests regularly, and there are still married Catholic priests today that if they're in the like Eastern Rite churches, mostly they have families. There are priests that were Anglicans and that have converted to Catholicism, and then they bring their whole family along with them. We actually have one in Miami. Like, it was crazy. He had his like grandkids at his priesthood ordination, you know. The married priesthood it's not like some sort of out in the space crazy idea, but it's something that it's been part of our history, and it's something. But should we do it now? I personally don't think that it's a great idea. Personal experience, I just look at my life, and it would be super unfair to my wife the way that I like serve. If the church is our wife, and then we had another, like an actual wife competing with the church, like it puts them in a weird position. I don't know if you've heard the statistics of Protestant pastors and the divorce rates, but it's actually really high. What if there's a sick call at the hospital, but then my daughter in high school is graduating at the same time, and that like, you know, like there's like this weird divide. You know, how does a bishop, if he needs a priest really, really badly in this church, how can you move this priest from here to here easily if like the kids are in school here and the wife has a job here? So there's practical things, and then there's also like theological implications to it. But I mean, I think that there's a lot to say about it. Regarding deviancy, so we're saying that all the sexual issues of the Catholic Church, would they be solved if we were married? Really not so, because then the logic would be, all right, married men don't really do sexually deviant things, and but if you look at the rates, married men, if you look at how much they abuse compared to like unmarried men, it's way, way, way higher. A lot of people think that marriage is a silver bullet sort of thing. Like, you know, I think that's the mentality of some of the guys, and maybe girls too. I'll get married and then I'll never have to deal with lust or pornography or masturbation again. And then they're like, wait a second, I got married and all these things are still here. And so it's not the unmarried state, by the way. The unmarried state is like the more normal course of human life. It's been something that's been part of humanity a lot longer. The way that we approach sexuality now, where sexuality is a normal thing and we can engage with many partners however we want, whenever we want, that's deviant. That's like the way crazier thing, and that's why I feel like a lot of things have gone off the rails. It's not necessarily the married or unmarried state, it's like the heart of the person.
What do you think is the toughest part of being a priest for you?
Recognizing that we're frail and that we're human and that we have our limits. What do we say in the Mass? Like, you're standing in persona Christi, like in the person of Christ. We're supposed to be Christ to the people. And like, Christ is pretty darn perfect, you know? How does that play into your inferiority complex, you know? Like, you're this human and now you're supposed to be like Jesus. And knowing how frail we are, that we're sinful, that like I don't have all this time in the world, infinite time to be with every person that like needs it, and that you miss emails and phone calls, or for some reason like something happens and you're not able to be there, and then you make a decision, you look back and you kick yourself. I think that that's the hardest part, is that I wish I was better. I wish I could be all of these amazing, incredible things and really impact the people and be with them the way that they need, but it's just too much. There's just too much, and so being okay with the fact that I'm not like Superman, that I'm not Jesus Christ, even though I'm called to be Jesus Christ.
Catholic Church's view on IVF, and then a follow-up would be, how can a nurse advise patients to not take the pill without talking about faith if it's not a Catholic hospital or a doctor's office?
Okay, I mean, IVF, that one's pretty easy, very, very discouraged, and I'm not sure if you've talked about bioethical issues and things about why we say that's not a good thing.
I don't know if I've gone into IVF really,
right,
which could be a whole nother conversation, but maybe just briefly, like what's the Church's belief about IVF?
Yeah, I mean, children, when they like there's a whole bunch of arguments, but the one that I think is the most pertinent to it is the idea that, like, you know, you fertilize 30 embryos and then you implant them, and then if you got, like, say you've got one kid with 29 brothers and sisters that are kind of like in stasis, what happens to those if life begins at fertilization? Then like what happens with these lives? So that's something to think about.
Yeah, so the Church does not support IVF. However, like, I've had people ask me before, if they're a child of IVF, what would be your comment to them?
You have as much dignity, you are as loved by the Lord, you're meant to be here, like the Lord has plans for you as well. You're not like a second degree citizen in like humanity. Just know that you have infinite value and human worth.
I think that's important. Like, while there are ethical and moral issues with IVF, if you are a person created from IVF, you are still good and valuable and worthy. Okay, let's talk about the pill really quickly. So I have 2 videos on here talking about natural family planning, so if you want to learn more about that, go click on those. But how can someone talk about the pill and like why it's bad for a person without bringing faith into the conversation?
Oh yeah, actually that's one of my favorite things, is to have a faith conversation without bringing up faith. So my personal approach is like you heard me, I was a neuroscience major in pre-med, so I like how it came about. First of all, I like telling people the story of like the fact that they tested it on women and a lot of women died for this thing to come about. And then 2, the side effects, horrendous side effects that come from using the pill, and like women should not have to go through something like that. And I feel like when they hear these things of like what you're tricking your body into doing and why like it feels the way it does, and then you talk about like the blood clot issue. I mean, you can just talk about the normal.
Yeah, faith does not need to be part of the conversation to talk about why a person shouldn't be on the pill. Like, somebody does not need to believe in God. They don't need to have any faith to see the impact that the pill has on your health. It's horrible for you. It's listed as a carcinogen. Yeah. It's so bad for your body. You don't have to talk about faith or God at all to get that point across. So go do your thing, you nurse. This person said, I'm not straight and I'm really struggling because Catholicism tells us to be straight, but as much as I pray, I can't be straight. What can I do?
We'll go through this in a couple of layers. Catholicism tells us to be straight. It's not that we're telling you to be straight. I don't think that the Catholic Church has ever put it in those terms. I've read the papers, I've read the correlations of like growing up and even the biological, like the studies of it. I think that where one is to affirm you, like, you know, like I feel like you have a knot in your soul, you know, like I can't imagine having to be in this position and feeling like I can't be where I'm supposed to be, but I'm stuck here. And that's a really hard place to be. So I want you to know that you're really loved. We all have these struggles that are really difficult sometimes, and we all have like places where we feel like we need to be somewhere and why aren't we there. Number 2, I feel of all the all the people in our church, it's the most heart-rending situations because we say that, like, you know, you can't have sex outside of marriage, and you know, like, and so for people like that, you can never be married if it's a man and a woman and a woman, then you have to be able to like live chastely in this world, live as brother and sister with everyone, when the rest of the world tells you like, no, you should live however you want to live, and you want to, and like, and it's very difficult. And they are the most noble Catholics, to be honest, are those that have the same-sex attraction but are trying to live this life. You read some of these testimonies from these Catholics who are trying to do it well as with the same-sex attraction thing, and it's really incredible how like their journeys are. I mean, it's a really heavy cross that you carry. That being said, I don't think that your prayer should be like, you know, Lord, like, take this cross from me. It's like, this is the Mother Teresa prayer. It's give me a stronger back so that I may carry my cross better. And so what I'm saying too is that I don't think your prayer should necessarily be like, Lord, like, make me straight, or Lord, like, change my sexuality, because then it will feel like if that doesn't change, like the Lord's not hearing you or the Lord doesn't see your struggles. I think it's more like, Lord, help me to understand this cross better. Help me to find somebody who will walk with me and carry it with me. Help, you know, find a Simon of Cyrene. I think that you should find a good Catholic priest that will walk with you and that will love you unconditionally and that will show you that, like, it's possible to live this life. And I think that hopefully and gradually, instead of this being something that, like, feels like it's dividing you from the church, dividing you from God, dividing you from people around you, it can be something that it can actually be something that will be used to glorify God and glorify faith. And it's incredible when it happens, because there is a lot of hope in this situation. But I'll be praying for you, especially because I know how hard this is.
I'll put a few resources in the description box below for people who struggle with same-sex attraction and are desiring to live out their faith. There's a few really good organizations that help walk with those people. But yeah, I think what you said about chastity is really important. Like, everyone is called to live out chastity no matter what their vocation is, no matter what their stage of life is, no matter what sex they're attracted to, and that just looks different for everybody. So you, as me, as Father Tran, as everybody, are called to a life of chastity, and that just might look different for each of us. The question that we will end with is, what is your biggest motivation to get out of bed each day?
I think the biggest motivation is the sense sometimes that you don't know what's going to happen, but you know that God's going to be a part of that journey, and so it's going to be good. It is really exciting. It's actually exciting to be a priest sometimes, because God just moves through, like, the people that move in your day. Like, you know, some days I'll start off with, like, not much on the schedule, but then at the end of the day I'll be like, what the heck happened? Like, all these random things happened, and I had to run to this hospital, and I had to go to this person who was dying, and then I had these amazing conversations, and, you know, people's lives were transformed in some way or another, and I got to be a part of that journey. That's what really gets me out of bed in the morning, is that I feel like I get to be part of the ride and getting to see God working in people's lives, like, through me sometimes, and it's kind of really awesome. People try to give us a credit, like, Father, that was a really good homily, or thank you for doing this or that, and it's funny because we know ultimately in the journey of faith that really the credit goes up above. We just have to get out of the way, and God will do some incredible things through us.
Thank you for joining us and answering all of those questions. I know that everybody really appreciates it. I really appreciate it, and I know that people are going to be really grateful for your thoughts and advice and sharing a little bit of your story. And
I love you. I love AJ. I love the Tablatas. I'll be praying for you and for all of you as well. So yeah, it's a blessing to be here with you today.
Thank you for being here. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did like it, please give it a big ol' thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos coming very soon, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!